Revealed. When my granddaughter said, "They'll steal your money," I discovered an incredible plan. Hank stood at the end of his hardware store, the familiar smell of fresh paint and lumber wrapping around him like a warm blanket. He ran a hand over the shelf stocked with nails, remembering the countless hours he'd spent here since the loss of his beloved Martha. It had been her laughter echoing through those aisles that once turned his small shop into a bustling hub of community life. Now it was quiet, reflecting the weight in his heart. The memories of family, of joy, mingled with the ghosts of what once was. Then Lily burst through the doors, her 10-year-old spirit lighting up the dim space. "Grandpa!" she squealed, her ponytail bouncing as she ran to him. She'd always been his sunshine, the spark that fended off the shadows that occasionally crept in. "They'll steal your money," she laughed, her eyes wide with innocent understanding of the predatory lenders creeping into town. Hank's heart sank. The local news had talked about it, reminding him of vultures circling for the weak. The weight of her words unleashed a surge within him, a protective instinct that roared to life. Wasn't that why he had worked so hard all these years to keep their community safe and honest? That evening Hank hosted a gathering in the back of the store, the dim overhead lights illuminating weary faces filled with concern. "We can't let this happen," he urged, the urgency in his voice crackling through the air. "We are a community, built on hard work, honesty, and looking out for each other." The townsfolk nodded, some murmuring in agreement. They shared their stories of late payments, broken promises, of families just struggling to scrape by. As he rallied them, Hank felt a flicker of hope igniting in their hearts. Could they really stand united against the threat looming over them? But meetings grew tense. The local government members, a few respected faces Hank had grown up with, dismissed his concerns. They were comfortable in their power, threatening to close his store if he didn't back down. Hank felt trapped, respect crashing hard against the harsh realities of their world. In those painful nights of silent despair, it was Lily's sweet, hopeful dreams that pulled him back to life. "Grandpa," she would say, eyes brimming with possibilities, "we can be like superheroes." Her enthusiasm was unshakable, making Hank's heart swell with pride, even in his darkest hours. Then, one evening while gathering notes for a speech, he stumbled upon an unsettling truth. A council member, a man Hank had trusted, had connections to the predatory lending business. The roaring of Hank's heart echoed in his ears. It was a shocking revelation amidst the chaos. This was it. With Lily by his side and fueled by the indomitable spirit of the townspeople, Hank's determination solidified. They would fight for their home, for the promises made under the night sky, a future built on community and resilience. The stakes were higher than ever, the risks palpable. As the town buzzed with anticipation about the forthcoming truth, Hank stood at the helm, ready to command a charge against the shadows. Yet, a creeping doubt crawled up his spine. Would they triumph? Or would the forces that threatened to silence them tear their unity apart? His heart raced with both fear and hope, caught in the uncertainty of what was to come. The fight for justice was just beginning. The sun dipped low behind the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the small town. Hank watched as the day's light faded, cradling a cup of coffee in his weathered hands. The discussions from the meeting still echoed in his mind, a mix of determination and doubt swirling within him. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something monumental. Lily, ever the spark of joy, twirled in the aisle, her laughter ringing like music. "Look, Grandpa, I'm a superhero." She struck a pose, hands on her hips, the confidence radiating from her like sunshine breaking through a cloudy sky. Hank's heart melted, an undeniable warmth spreading through him. "You sure are, sweetheart. But superheroes need help, right? We can't do this alone." Her brow furrowed in thought, reminding him how she had a knack for simplifying the most complex ideas. "Then we should find more friends. Everyone can be a superhero." He nodded, a plan beginning to form. This fight wasn't just about him or even the adults in town. It was about the future. Lily's unwavering faith in the world fueled his resolve. What if they could enlist everyone, families, young and old, united against the looming threat? The next day, Hank began spreading the word. He set up a town meeting in the park, promising a gathering filled with honest talk and a plan. As people filtered in, he noticed the tired expressions, the flickers of hope struggling against the weight of worry. They needed something to rally around, and they needed to feel powerful again. Thank you all for coming, Hank began, looking into each pair of eyes. We're here to talk about those lenders who want to take advantage of our loved ones. But I believe together we can fight back. Lily stood beside him, the unwavering support of a silent warrior. We can be superheroes, she added, her voice rising with youthful enthusiasm. The crowd chuckled softly, but Hank sensed the shift. Was it hope? Could they really see themselves not just as victims but as a united front? As discussions flowed, Hank could feel the tide turning. Heartfelt stories poured out, people who had fallen victim to scams, families facing foreclosure, and the despair that had closed around their spirits. But with each shared tale, determination ignited. They started brainstorming ideas, ways to raise awareness, and resources to educate those being hunted. Weeks rolled into a whirlwind of activity. Posters were made, flyers distributed, and meetings organized to reach every corner of the community. Lily wrapped her small hands around her friends and classmates, pulling them into the cause. The innocence of youth infused the town with energy. Kids started writing letters to the council. School projects turned into awareness campaigns. Even the local baker joined in, pledging a portion of his sales to help fund legal aid. Yet, just as the momentum began to swell, a storm brewed. Hank received an anonymous note warning him to stop meddling with matters that didn't concern him. Threats always have a way of creeping into the light, and this one sent a jolt through him. Was he putting them all in danger? Was he risking not just his store but the safety of his family and friends? He glanced at Lily curled up in her favorite chair, oblivious to the dark clouds forming above. The love for her soared in his heart. How could he protect her? Ensure her smile didn't fade? With the stakes rising, uncertainty shadowed his path, but the glow of hope whispered in his ear. They were all in this together. He had to find a way to push through, not just for himself but for the community that had begun to come alive again. But just as the groundwork was laid, a shocking revelation would drop into Hank's lap, shaking their newfound unity to its very core. How could they keep the fight alive when the ultimate betrayal was revealed? Would they crumble, or find strength in the turmoil? The moment of truth was on the horizon. The next morning, Hank awoke to the sound of chirping birds, their cheerful melodies competing with the pounding in his chest. He brewed coffee, but the usual ritual felt heavy today. The note from yesterday weighed on his mind. All he could think about was how he might have put Lily at risk. He glanced at her sleeping form, reassured for now, but it didn't eliminate the worry gnawing at him. As the sun peeked through the curtains, he hesitated before heading to the makeshift community center, a converted garage where they had been meeting since they banded together. Each step felt like a march into enemy territory, the uncertainty heavier than ever. When he arrived, he found a small crowd of familiar faces already gathered. The energy was palpable. There were murmurings of excitement mingling with fear. Darlene, a single mother who had shared her own heartbreak in previous meetings, stood in front of a whiteboard filled with ideas, things they could do to build awareness. Her spirit was contagious, sparking hope in those who had been lost. "Hey Hank," she called, waving him over. "We were just discussing ideas for the community rally next week." "Yeah, I've been thinking about that," Hank replied, forcing a smile. But his mind drifted back to the note. What if we told everyone about the threats? Maybe a workshop on recognizing scams? Darlene nodded vigorously, her eyes lighting up. "Yes, and we can invite someone from the local police department to help us." As plans unfolded, Hank caught snippets of conversations around him. Enthusiasm blended into a kind of hopeful chaos. People were sharing their stories again, rekindling the spirit of unity. Yet, lurking in the background, the shadow of the note remained, a threat he couldn't shake. Lily arrived shortly after school, her backpack swinging at her side. She scanned the room, her bright eyes scanning the faces until they landed on her grandfather. A grin broke across her face as she ran to him, wrapping him in a tight hug. "Grandpa, guess what?" she chirped, her voice filled with excitement. "We're going to write letters to all the businesses. They want to help us, like the baker." His heart swelled. That's amazing, sweetheart. But before he could bask in her joy, there it was again, anxiety creeping back in. As they worked through the details, Hank saw his neighbors, their faces illuminated with determination. He should have been grateful. Yet, he couldn't ignore the feeling that the rug would be pulled out from under them at any moment. Hours passed, filled with laughter and plans. Just as Hank started to breathe easier, someone burst through the door. It was Timmy, a local teenager, gasping for breath. "You won't believe it, there's something you need to see." Hank squinted at him. "What's going on?" Timmy rushed to the whiteboard and pointed to a list of local businesses they had gathered support from. "One of these companies sent me a message. They don't want to help. They're connected to the people who've been targeting us. They want us to back down." Hank's gut twisted. The community's excitement faltered, the weight of revelation sinking in. The very people they thought they could trust were running deeper into the shadows. "Is there evidence?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady, feeling the dark clouds tightening again. Timmy nodded and pulled out his phone. "I've got screenshots. You need to see it." Hank glanced around the room. Eyes widened, breaths quickened. Would this betrayal pull them apart? Or would it ignite a fiercer fight? In that moment he realized he faced not just an external threat, but an internal battle as well. The truth was out, but what would they do with it? Who would be their allies? And who would they need to watch their backs against? The whisper of uncertainty turned into a deafening silence. As the enormity of the revelation settled in, Hank understood they were standing at a crossroads. He had to find a way to keep the community together. The fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. But for now the question lingered. Would they gather their courage and rise together? Or would they fall apart when faced with the ultimate betrayal? Hank's heart raced as he scanned the faces of his neighbors, fear glimmering in their eyes. The vibrant chatter that once filled the garage had faded into an eerie quiet. It was as if time itself had paused, the air thick with uncertainty. He felt the weight of a leader's gaze resting on his shoulders, and he knew he had to speak. "Okay, everyone," he said, voice steady but laced with urgency. "I know this is a lot to take in, but we can't allow this to tear us apart. We're stronger together. We need a plan." Darlene stepped up beside him, her unwavering spirit shining through the heavy atmosphere. "What if we turn this around? Instead of letting them intimidate us, let us show them we won't back down." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Hank felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they could harness this betrayal and channel it into something powerful. Timmy stepped forward, clutching his phone like a lifeline. "The screenshots, they show the business owner's messages. We can expose them. If the community sees how they really are, maybe they'll back us instead." "That's brilliant," Hank exclaimed. The thought of turning the threat into a rallying cry sparked a fire in his belly. "Let us host a meeting, invite everyone in the neighborhood. We make sure they know what's happening." "An infographic," someone chimed in from the back. "We could create a simple graphic illustrating the extent of this scam." With fresh energy, ideas began flying around like sparks in a fire. Plans for pamphlets, social media posts, and flyers started taking shape. Hank felt the contagious excitement spreading, lifting the heavy fog of fear that had settled over the room. But even as the enthusiasm surged, a tinge of doubt tugged at him. What if they weren't ready? What if they were attacked again? He pushed the thoughts aside, focusing instead on moving forward one step at a time. As they worked late into the afternoon, the community came alive with plans and possibilities. Hank found himself smiling more easily, reassured by the presence of his neighbors who were now allies against the unseen threat. But just as he began to feel a glimmer of safety, his phone buzzed ominously in his pocket. Excusing himself, he stepped outside, finding a quieter corner of the parking lot. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Stop what you're doing. You have no idea how dangerous this is." His hand trembled as he read the text. Something cold trickled down his spine. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, but it was quickly overshadowed by fear for Lily. Would they come after him? Or worse, her? Hank inhaled deeply and reminded himself of the community they built, a family, through thick and thin. Gathering his resolve, he walked back inside, where voices buzzed with life. "We're doing this, and nothing will stop us," he declared, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "We might not know what's coming, but we'll face it together." Cheers erupted in response, and for a moment, he felt buoyed by the unity surrounding him. Just then, Lily burst through the door, her face flushed from the excitement of the afternoon. She beamed, her backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. "Grandpa, You're going to be so proud of what I found out today. Hank's heart swelled again, but just as quickly, the weight of caution pressed down on him. What is it? He asked, half exhilarated and half apprehensive. There's a big meeting at the library tonight about community safety. Some of our supporters will be there, she exclaimed, completely unaware of the dangers lurking around them. Hank felt a surge of pride, but it quickly clashed with worry. That's great, honey, but we need to be careful. Before he could finish, Timmy interrupted. We need to take this to the library. If they're organizing, we'll learn what's really happening in our town. The gears in Hank's south mind clicked into place. They could combine their efforts. But it would also mean putting himself in the eye of the storm. The notion felt both thrilling and terrifying. Tonight it is then, he confirmed, feeling all eyes on him once more. But let us stay alert. We need to keep Lily and each other safe. As they gathered their things and prepared to leave, Hank couldn't shake the feeling that their real battle was only just beginning. What other surprises awaited them that night in the library? And would they be ready for whatever awaited them? The drive to the library was filled with an electric mix of anticipation and anxiety. Hank's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel as Lily chattered incessantly about all she had heard from her friends. Everyone is talking about how important this meeting is. Grandpa, they say there'll even be representatives from the town there. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, oblivious to the worry etched across his face. Yeah, that's awesome, kiddo. It could really help us. Hank forced a smile, but the thrill of the evening was overshadowed by a gnawing concern. What would happen if their plan fell apart? Would the danger escalate? As they parked, Darlene and Timmy rushed toward them, already bubbling with energy. We gathered more folks along the way. They're excited to hear the truth, Timmy said, his enthusiasm infectious despite Hank's trepidation. They entered the library, the warm light flooding their faces, a stark contrast to the shadows they faced outside. Rows of chairs waited where the community would gather. As they settled down, familiar faces filled the hall, neighbors, friends, and even a few newcomers, all united by one common goal. Hank caught a glimpse of Mrs. Keller's worried expression across the room, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, and it jolted him back to reality. The meeting began, and the room buzzed with chatter that transitioned into more serious discussions. When the librarian called on local leaders, their voices rang clear, outlining the steps taken to keep the community safe. Hank wished he could dismiss his unease as he watched Lily beam at the speakers, her faith in their fight unwavering. But then an unexpected voice broke through the optimism. We can't trust everyone just because they say they want to help. It was Derek, a business owner who had a reputation for pushing personal interests, his tone sharp enough to slice through the hopeful atmosphere. Hank felt a shift in the crowd. Whispers rippled through the hall. What does he know? Is he working with those who scammed us? Listen, Derek. Hank found himself standing up, the insistent need to protect his neighbors rising within him. With everything that's been happening, now isn't the time for doubt. We need to stand together, not apart. Each person here is willing to fight for our community. The reaction was immediate. Clapping rang out, uniting the room again, but Hank noticed Darlene giving him a cautious look. He caught her concern, mirroring his own fears, despite the cheers and enthusiasm around him. But what if it only invites more trouble? Her eyes seemed to say. Before Hank could calm himself, the door to the library swung open with a creak. A figure loomed in the doorway, silhouetted by the hall's light. It was Colton, the business owner they thought they had evidence against. Gasps echoed throughout the space. Is this a meeting or a witch hunt? He called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The room tensed, uncertainty hanging heavy as the sight of him reminded everyone of the threat that had loomed over them for so long. Hank's heart raced, guilt creeping back at the thought of how precarious their position was. Colton, you have some nerve showing up here, Darlene shouted, anger igniting in her eyes. Colton stepped inside confidently, scanning the crowd as if searching for weakness. I just wanted to remind you all that stirring the pot could lead to more than you bargained for. His smug grin sent shivers through the gathered crowd. Hank felt that fear again, sharper than before. Could they face this man down without losing everything? The atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension hanging thick and heavy. Hank locked eyes with Lily, who looked up at him with innocent trust. He felt a surge of determination. They could not let fear take hold. Let us not let this get ugly, he urged, finding his voice again. This is about protecting our home. This is about family. How could they turn Colton's presence into a weapon for their own cause? That question churned in Hank's mind, swirling with all the possibilities of what might come next. Would they find the courage to confront the darkness together? Or would they fall apart in the face of intimidation? As Colton smirked, Hank couldn't shake the feeling that their reckoning was just beginning. What could they discover tonight that would change everything? Colton's presence loomed large in the library, and the whispers crescendoed into a murmur of unease. Darlene squared her shoulders, glaring at him as if hoping to ignite the very walls of the room with her anger. Hank felt a tightness in his chest. He had to act. Colton, he called out, his voice steadier than he felt. You're here, so let us talk. You claim to care about this community. Then let us hear your side. The crowd turned, eyes wide, hanging on his words as if a single spark could change everything. That's the spirit, Colton replied, taking a few steps forward, his grin wide but not sincere. I can see you're all eager to hear the truth, but I'm afraid the truth is a little darker than you want to acknowledge. His eyes flickered with a sinister light, and Hank's heart sank as that lurking fear from before rose up again. The murmurs grew quieter, captivated by the unfolding drama. Hank could feel Lily's little fingers grip his hand tightly. He glanced down, her eyes bright with loyalty, and it calmed him just a little. Are you here to threaten us? Darlene shouted, stepping forward. We're not afraid of you. As soon as the words left her mouth, Hank felt the energy shift. The collective solidarity of the room began to swell again, like a tide pushing back against a storm. Fear. I wouldn't dream of it, Colton said, feigning offense. But let us be clear. If you pursue this little crusade of yours, you will expose yourselves both legally and socially. Don't think the townsfolk won't turn on you. He paused, looking around. After all, no one likes to follow a loser. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, hesitation creeping back into their expressions. Hank could see the doubt tugging at their resolve, but he couldn't let Colton win. We are not looking for favors, Colton. We're seeking accountability. But do you truly understand what we're up against? He challenged, stepping closer. Hank could feel the air crackle as the tension escalated. What if I told you that I have the upper hand, that you don't know half the story? What is that supposed to mean? Hank spat back, frustration bubbling inside him. Here's the thing, Colton said, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. There are deals being struck in this town that involve all of you. If I'm taken down, there might be a lot of collateral damage people you care about. Let us just say you're not the only ones who can stir the pot. Shock rippled through the audience. Fear mingled with confusion. We know who you are. Timmy shouted, his young voice an anchor in the chaos. You can't just bully us. Watch me, Colton said, a sly smile curling on his lips. You think you're heroes, but maybe you're just pawns in a much larger game. Hank felt the ground shift beneath him. Could Colton be right? Were they simply making things worse for themselves? His mind raced, grappling with the implications of the threat. Listen, Hank said, trying to find strength in the chaos. We're not backing down. We will protect our community no matter what lies ahead. Darlene nodded, and Timmy clenched his fists defiantly. The crowd began to murmur agreements, voices rising in confidence. But Colton raised a finger, silencing them momentarily. Be careful what you wish for, my friends. He turned on his heel, a shadow leaving the room but the sense of danger lingering around them. You might just find out that the truth is more dangerous than you ever imagined. The door swung shut, and the room fell into an uneasy silence. Hank felt every heartbeat echo inside him, the air thick with uncertainty. He locked eyes with Lily. She looked so small yet so brave, and that fierce protectiveness surged again within him. What could he do to keep their promise of safety? While the fear loomed heavy, determination began to blossom as well. They needed a plan, and fast. Okay, Hank finally said, the sparkle of new purpose in his voice. Let us dig deeper. There has to be a way to uncover what Colton is hiding. But they were running out of time. What could they expose before they faced the full brunt of Colton's threats? And as they gathered their thoughts, another unsettling question loomed. What hidden truths awaited in the shadows of their community? The silence hung heavy in the air, like a weight pressing down on them all. Hank felt that mix of fear and resolve swirling inside him. The library was a sanctuary filled with stories, but now it felt like a battleground. He didn't want to let Colton's words sink into the hearts of the people he cared about. They had to stand strong. Okay, he repeated, trying to shake off the pervasive dread. Let us brainstorm. We need to gather information, connect the dots. We can't just fight shadows without knowing what we're up against. Darlene stepped forward, a fire igniting in her eyes. We have to talk to people who've been around longer. The old-timers know things, stories that might not be written down anywhere. Hank nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. Old Mr. Jensen down at the diner, the retired sheriff, Ms. Wilkins who had been a shopkeeper for decades, they could hold pieces of the puzzle. But would they be willing to talk? Would they have the courage to stand against Colton and the power he wielded? He turned to Lily, who still gripped his hand tight. What do you think, kiddo? You've lived in this town longer than most of us. You have a good sense of things. She looked up at him, her innocent eyes wider than usual. Sometimes, when I listen to people, they say things they don't even realize. The other day, I heard Mrs. Thompson at the market say Colton's been visiting her late at night. It didn't feel right. Hank felt a chill run down his spine. He should have known that Colton was up to more than just threat-making. That's it. We can start there. Lily, you're onto something. You're not just a kid, you're a part of this. If you hear anything else, anything even small, please tell us. Lily nodded. Determination flickered in her eyes, and for Hank, it felt like the spark of hope they needed. Together they began gathering names, connecting pieces, planning their strategy in hushed tones so their resolve wouldn't be seen as weakness. As the minutes turned into an hour, Hank noticed a change in the atmosphere. People began to exchange stories, rallying as memories and secrets came to light. It was like lifting a veil that had kept them shackled, darkness giving way to light. This wasn't just about Colton anymore. It was about the heart of their community. Just as they began to feel the first stirrings of team spirit, the door swung open with a loud bang. The room collectively tensed. The figure that stepped through was unmistakable Colton. He wore a confident smirk, but there was something darker behind his eyes. Gathering the troops? He called out, his voice dripping with mockery. How adorable. But don't tell yourselves there's any use in it. You're digging your own graves, folks. With each word you share, you're building a case against yourselves. Justice? In a town like this, you're just asking for trouble. Hank felt his stomach twist. Whatever strength had built up in the room now felt like a fragile tower, swaying dangerously. It was true the stakes were rising, and they had stepped into the lion's den without a clear plan. Could they really fight back? Hank took a deep breath. We're not afraid of you, Colton. We're protecting our home and will expose you. Colton laughed, a sound that echoed off the bookshelves. Oh, you really think it's that simple? I've got people in place, and if you aren't careful, you'll find out just how quickly this town will turn against you. With that he turned, leaving behind a charged air thick with uncertainty and dread. Hank swayed in the wake of his threats, uncertainty clawing at his thoughts. What do we do now? Darlene whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Hank searched for words for inspiration. They needed to strike first, to shine a light on whatever darkness Colton had been hiding. But where could they start? As he looked at the determined faces around him, that quiet resolve ignited a spark inside him again. They had to take action fast. But the danger was clear. It wasn't just the town at stake, it was their very lives. Let us meet tomorrow, same time. We'll begin to uncover Colton's secrets. We'll find allies and we'll show him that we're not just pawns, we're players. But we need to move without drawing his attention. The murmurs of agreement rose again, palpable and powerful. Hank could feel a change in the air, an electric pulse of hope mixed with fear. But even as they wrapped things up, a new thought weighed heavily on him. What if they uncovered something far bigger and more dangerous than they could ever imagine? What if Colton wasn't the only threat? They were stepping into a deeper game than they ever thought possible, and Hank felt that familiar knot of fear twist in his gut. Could they truly handle what lay ahead? The next day dawned with a tension that hung in the air like a summer storm waiting to break. Hank felt it the moment he stepped outside. The sun peeked through the clouds, but shadows lingered, mirroring the doubt that gnawed at him. He had barely slept, his mind racing through strategies and what-if scenarios. Arriving at the library, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Darlene was already there, pacing back and forth, her fingers running through her hair like she was trying to tame a storm. Lily sat quietly at a table, hunched over a notebook, scribbling down her thoughts. "Morning," Hank called, forcing a smile despite the weight on his chest. Darlene paused, meeting his gaze. "I hope we're ready for whatever Colton throws at us. I have a feeling he won't take our chatter lying down." "Then we better make our chatter count," Hank replied, taking a seat. He pulled out a notepad, the blank pages glaring back at him. "We need a solid plan to talk to the old-timers. If we can gather enough information, maybe we can expose what Colton is really up to." Lily looked up, her expression serious beyond her years. "I thought a lot about what Mrs. Thompson said. If she's telling the truth, Colton's visits could mean he's trying to gather secrets against the people who don't agree with him." Hank nodded. "And we need to find out what they know. I was thinking we could start with Mr. Jensen and work our way from there." As they mapped out their plan, the list of names grew longer, each person representing a thread that could unravel Colton's web of deceit. But even as they discussed their intentions, Hank couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. It was a prickling sensation at the back of his neck, the sense that their enemy knew their every move. "We gotta be careful," he warned, his voice low. "Colton has eyes everywhere. We can't let him catch on to our plan." Just then, the door swung open, and in walked Mr. Jensen, his usual warmth dimmed by an air of seriousness. "Did I miss the secret meeting?" he joked, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Not at all," Hank said, motioning for him to join. "In fact, we were hoping you could share some stories about Colton. We need to understand what we're facing here." As Jensen settled into a chair, he looked around, his expression shifting from light to somber. "Colton's not just a bully. He's dangerous. There are whispers that he's involved with people who aren't afraid to use intimidation to get what they want." Hank's heart raced. "You mean?" Jensen nodded gravely. "There are rumors of illegal dealings, shady transactions. He's not just a threat. He's part of something that could destroy this community from the inside out." The weight of Jensen's words hung heavy in the air. This was bigger than they had thought. Colton wasn't just a rival, he was a part of a much larger game, and they had to play wisely. Fury ignited in Darlene's eyes. "We can't let him win. This town deserves better. But how do we expose something so deep-rooted?" "I think," Hank said slowly, "we need to gather enough evidence to back up what we're saying. Talking isn't enough anymore. If people are going to join us, they need to see the truth for themselves." As the three of them began to piece together the information they had, Hank couldn't shake the growing sense of urgency. The stories they unearthed pointed to something far more sinister than he had imagined, and it was becoming clearer that their investigation would not go unnoticed for long. A chill swept through the library as he heard the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps approaching outside. Lily's eyes widened and Hank's heart dropped. What now? Before he could formulate a plan, the unmistakable figure of Colton appeared in the doorway. His expression, a mix of fury and contempt, sent a ripple of fear through everyone present. "Did you really think it would be this easy?" Colton sneered, his voice like ice. "You're playing a dangerous game. And now it's time for you to see what real fear looks like." Hank felt the ground shift. Beneath him, they were standing on thin ice and it was starting to crack. As Colton stepped closer, a cold realization washed over him. Whatever they had planned, it had just become a race against time. Could they outmaneuver him before the storm broke? Hank's breath caught in his throat. The air in the room thickened, a tangible tension wrapping around them like a vice. Colton was the eye of the storm, and they were caught right in the center. "Back off, Colton," Darlene shouted, her voice steady despite the shaking in her hands. Hank admired her courage, but he felt their resolve had shrunk to nothing in the shadow of Colton's menacing presence. "Oh, Darlene, isn't that cute?" Colton mocked. "You think you can stand up to me? You're just kids playing at something you don't understand." His eyes glinted like sharp glass. "You should know that secrets are bullets. Once you pull the trigger, there's no going back." Lily trembled beside Hank. He could see the fear etched in her features. "What do you want from us?" she asked, her voice small and almost lost in the vastness of the room. Colton chuckled softly, relishing the moment. "I want you to understand your place. You have a very short window to back off or face the consequences. He pointed a finger at Mr. Jensen, who had gone silent, his face clouded with worry. And if you all keep digging into things that don't concern you, well, I wouldn't want to see anyone get hurt. Hank felt a spark ignite inside him. You think we're afraid? He shot back, pushing the fear down. You may be associated with shady people, but we're not backing down. Colton's eyes darkened. Is that so? He swung his gaze to Mr. Jensen. You old-timers are always so eager to rise against what you don't understand. You may have your little group, but trust me, I'll make sure it doesn't last. Time froze. Hank glanced at Darlene and then Lily, each of them masking their dread with determination. You don't intimidate us, Darlene said, stepping forward. If you think you can scare us off, you're wrong. We'll find the truth no matter what it takes. A flicker of something anger, perhaps, crossed Colton's face before he regained his composure. Fine. Let us play your game. Just don't come crying to me when you realize you have no idea what you're up against. With that, he turned on his heel and strode out of the library, leaving a charged silence in his wake. The oppressive air stirred as the door swung shut behind him. Wow, Hank breathed out, feeling adrenaline pulse through his veins. The confrontation had sparked a fire, but he also felt the weight of the threat hanging over them. Do you think he was serious? Lily asked, her voice shaky. Seriously dangerous, Hank replied, swallowing hard. But we can't let him scare us. If anything, that proves how determined he is to keep whatever he is hiding under wraps. We have to move fast, Darlene added, determination filling her voice. If Colton has connections and he is involved in something serious, we'll need to gather as much proof as possible before he catches on. Mr. Jensen nodded in agreement, his expression resolute. I'll help wherever I can. We need to mobilize the community, get others involved. They must understand what Colton threatens to snuff out. Hank felt a rush of hope. They were not alone in this fight. The community could rise against a common enemy. Okay, he said, exchanging determined glances with his friends. Let us dig deeper and we'll bring this out into the open. Colton may think he is playing a game, but the truth can be the ultimate weapon. As they formulated their next move, a chilling thought struck Hank. What if they were still being watched? Not just by Colton but by those loyal to him, lurking in the shadows waiting to strike? Fear began to creep back in, but he pushed it down. They had hope, determination, and each other. They were a team. Just then Lily gasped, pointing towards the window. Look! Hank turned sharply as a dark figure slipped around the corner of the library. A chill ran down his spine. We need to find out who that is now. The chase was on, and with it came the risk of everything unraveling. Would they uncover the truth or become the next target? The moment Hank bolted out the library door, adrenaline surged through his veins. He couldn't let whoever it was slip through his fingers. The figure was fast, darting between parked cars and casting glances over their shoulder, as if sensing Hank's urgency. Stay close, Lily, he shouted, feeling the weight of his responsibility pressing down on him. He turned the corner, straining to catch a glimpse of the shadow that had so eagerly disappeared. Who is it? Lily asked, her voice a mix of fear and excitement, but there was a steely determination shining in her eyes. She had embraced this fight alongside him, and it fueled Hank's resolve to protect her. I don't know yet, he panted, but I intend to find out. They sprinted down the side street, the sound of hurried footsteps echoing against the pavement. The figure lunged around a sharp bend, and Hank pressed harder, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. Suddenly the figure stumbled, nearly falling. Hank seized the moment. Stop! He yelled, closing the gap between them fast. To his shock, the figure turned, revealing a face he hadn't expected to see. It was Liz, the town's cafe owner, her expression a mixture of fear and urgency. Hank! Thank goodness it's you. He slowed to a jog, catching his breath. Liz? What are you doing here? Were you spying on us? No, she exclaimed, shaking her hands. I was trying to warn you. Colton knows you're digging. I saw him talking to some of his people. I think they're planning something. Hank's stomach tightened. What do you mean? What are they planning? I couldn't get close enough to hear everything, she replied, glancing around nervously. But I overheard them discussing the rally plan next week. They want to sabotage it, make sure no one shows up. Hank felt anger flood his system. They think they can intimidate us into silence? Liz nodded. They're playing for keeps, Hank. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing knowing you guys were right in their crosshairs. You have to warn everyone. We need to regroup. Come on, we need to gather everyone together fast. Hank exclaimed, turning to lead the way back. As they raced towards the library again, Hank's mind raced with possibilities. If they could rally the town, share Liz's news and prepare for whatever Colton had in store, they could regain the upper hand. Together. Back inside, the atmosphere trembled with anticipation. Everyone. Hank called out, heart racing. We have a situation. Liz just told me that Colton and his people are planning to sabotage our rally. Gasps followed, panic flickering across faces. Darlene stood from her chair, fully alert. What do? We can't let them ruin everything we've fought for. Hank took a deep breath, ready to direct their energy toward action. We need to strategize. We can't let Colton intimidate us. Instead of hiding, we'll show our town what we stand for and organize everything we've planned so far. Mr. Jensen stepped forward, his face set with purpose. We'll get the word out to everyone. Maybe we should set up a community watch, pay attention to any unusual activity. Let us hit back with transparency. Exactly. Hank said, the fire within him reigniting. We can turn their plotting against them. Let us make this rally not just an event, but a statement. We'll prepare a presentation, highlight the reality of the predatory lenders, and show them we're stronger when we stand together. The room erupted with murmurs of agreement and renewed courage. Hank felt buoyed by each nod, each person ready to fight back. Lily, why don't you work on the flyers with Darlene? Get the kids involved and use their art skills. Show everyone they're part of this fight. I'm on it, Grandpa. Lily beamed, excited by the challenge. Hank felt pride swell in him as he watched her run off with Darlene, collecting supplies as the ideas began to flow. He turned to Liz, who was standing nearby, anxiety still etched in her features. Thank you for bringing this to us. We can't do this without people like you. Liz smiled faintly, the weight on her shoulders seemingly lifting. We're all in this together. Let us show Colton we won. To be silenced. As they made their plans, an invigorating sense of unity washed over Hank. Everyone was eager to contribute, to fight back against the fear that had shadowed their town for too long. The upcoming rally would be more than a gathering, it would be a stand for everything they believed in. Days passed in a flurry of activity. Posters and flyers decorated the streets, children engaged in spreading news, and adults signed petitions in support of their community. The anticipation built as the rally approached, bringing the town together more than ever before. Yet, Hank kept hearing whispers of Colton in the back of his mind. Would he try to sabotage their plans in ways they couldn't foresee? Just as a part of Hank wanted to relax, focus solely on the positive energy around him, he couldn't shake that sense of danger lurking around the corner. The day of the rally arrived, bright and clear, but Hank felt his heart tighten as he looked at the crowd. So many came out to support, filling the park and lending warmth to the morning sun. It was incredible. Joy and pride rose like a tangible wave, filling him with hope. Then, right when they were about to begin, uproar rippled through the crowd. A number of cars rolled into the parking lot. The unmistakable sound of engines revving stirred an uneasy feeling within him. Hank squinted through the crowd. Colton's eyes narrowed as he stepped out of one of those cars, flanked by a group of grim-faced enforcers. The low rumble of discontent surged through the hastily assembled crowd. Worried murmurs and confused whispers filled the air like a dark cloud rolling in. Stay calm, Hank whispered to those nearby, maintaining his steadiness even as uncertainty crept into his chest. Whatever Colton had planned, they had to face it together. People of this town. Colton's voice boomed. What a lovely gathering you have. But let me remind you that standing against me has consequences. It's not too late to walk away. Hank felt everyone's eyes on him. A challenge shimmered in his gut. This was the moment he had trained his entire life for. We won't back down. He shouted into the sea of faces, finding strength as Lily squeezed his hand. The crowd echoed his sentiment, voices rising in unity. I said we won't back down. Hank roared, appreciating the surge of strength that rippled through them. Together they would stand firm. It's simple, Colton. Darlene added, stepping up beside Hank. You can't scare us. "We're here to reclaim our town." Chants erupted from the crowd, voices rising, uncertainty replaced with determination. Hank felt it, an exhilarating, remarkable energy thrumming through them all. Each heartbeat rang with courage, with collective belief. Colton's face darkened, but he couldn't silence them. The unity they had created was stronger than anything fear could conjure. "Let us show them who we are," Hank bellowed, raising his fist to the sky. Together they surged forward, voices blending into a mighty chorus. "We are not afraid." As the chant echoed throughout the park, Hank felt tears in his eyes, tears of joy, of victory, of love for this community he had fought for. They had come together against the shadow that sought to separate them. Rallying in strength, the sun glinted brightly, illuminating smiling faces, hearts beating fiercely for the future. They had risen, stronger and more unified than ever before. Hope blossomed between them, unwavering and true. Together, they would face whatever dangers lay ahead. Across the battlefield of darkness, they had found their light. Together. And with that, Hank understood that they could truly transform the future. This was just the beginning. Hank turned, arms wide, smiling at the sea of faces ready for action. Tess, Mrs. Keller, the teenagers, the older generations, each grounding his resolve. They would reclaim their town, their lives, and most importantly, their hope. And the moment bubbled with potential. If they could achieve this, there was no limit to what they could do. Hope whispered endless possibilities as they faced the battle before them. Now was their moment. And how glorious it was to be alive in a fight bigger than themselves. As the rally kicked off, speeches echoed. Cheers filled the air. Hands waved over excited heads. Hank felt the weight begin to lift. This was the transformation they all needed. Collaboratively, they would thrive. Now, dear friends, this is your moment to shine. Don't forget to support our story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.